This video is made possible by CuriosityStream. By clicking the link in the description, you'll also get Nebula for free, a streaming platform made by and for creators like me. Needless to say, Kevin intentionally caused quite a bit of bodily harm to both Harry and Marv. For example,
Hello.
You could argue that Kevin McCallister is a criminal mastermind up there with Jigsaw and Martha Stewart.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Hey Legaleagles, and welcome back to Laws Broken, where an attorney destroys your favorite childhood movies by showing you how illegal everything is. Because everything is illegal. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen Home Alone at one time or another. You know, it's the heartwarming holiday movie where Macaulay Culkin, aka Kevin McCallister, gets left behind by his 25-person family right before Christmas, and then has to fight off a pair of criminals who are determined to rob his house and kill him. You know, the typical heartwarming family Christmas movie. Or at the very least, kids die hard. Now, obviously, Harry and Marv, aka the Wet Bandits, are criminals. We'll go into great detail about their criminal exploits. But is it possible that other characters may be far more sinister than the Wet Bandits? Is it possible that Harry and Marv simply had the misfortune to stumble upon a nefarious criminal enterprise already in progress? Well, let's start by examining perhaps the true criminals of this holiday movie, the worst parents in the world, Mr. and Mrs. McCallister.
Kevin!
Now, as we all know, the power goes out at the McCallister residence the night before they're scheduled for an international flight to Paris. And when they wake up in the morning, they rush to get to the plane with only 45 minutes before their plane takes off. And once on the plane, Kevin's mom famously says,
"Hope we didn't forget anything."
Unfortunately, Kevin's parents have left him home alone.
I made my family disappear.
No, Kevin didn't make his parents disappear. They abandoned him.
What kind of mother am I?
If it makes you feel any better, I forgot my reading classes.
And I'm sure many of you feel for the McCallisters and realize it's not that easy to keep track of so many kids. But in reality, both Mr. and Mrs. McCallister could be found guilty of either child abandonment or child endangerment. A person commits child abandonment when he or she, as a parent, guardian, or other person having physical custody or control of a child, without regard for the mental or physical health, safety, or welfare of that child, knowingly leaves that child who is under the age of 13 without supervision by a responsible person over the age of 14 for a period of 24 hours or more. Now here, Kevin is a mere 8 years old, 5 years younger than the minimum age under the child abandonment statute, and he's left alone all by himself without any kind of supervision.
Guys, I'm eating junk and watching rubbish. You better come out and stop me.
Now, I'm sure the McCallisters would argue that they didn't knowingly leave Kevin all alone. It was just a horrible mistake.
Did you count heads?
11, including me. 5 boys, 6 girls, 4 parents, 2 drivers, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Now, unfortunately for the McCallisters, getting stuck on the plane and eventually the airport in Paris doesn't necessarily help them all that much. It might drop the charge down from child abandonment to just simply negligent parenting. But the bottom line is that Kevin was probably home alone for multiple days without any supervision. Such abandonment could amount to a Class 4 felony in Illinois. I mean, Kevin is a small child who can't even pack his own suitcase. He's what the French call les incompetents. And what's worse is Kevin's parents could also be found guilty of child endangerment for leaving him all alone. In Illinois, a person who causes or permits a child to be placed in a situation which endangers the child's life or health could be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. So maybe next time the McCallisters should keep track of where their children are. Or, you know, set multiple alarms so they're not late for their flight. And by the way, stick around until the end of this video where I give a verdict for how long everyone, including Kevin's parents, are going to jail. But that takes us to the most traditional criminal wrongdoers in this whole affair, the so-called Wet Bandits themselves, Harry and Marv.
Crowbars up.
Now, of course, Harry starts off the movie strong by dressing up like a police officer. Quite clearly, Harry is impersonating a police officer to get some inside intel on the McCallisters' holiday plans. That is, that they'll be out of town during the holidays, leaving the perfect opportunity for a career burglar to break in and take whatever the McCallisters have.
You're taking a trip to Paris.
Yes, we hope to leave tomorrow morning.
Excellent.
Now, the McCallisters live in Winnetka, Illinois, and Illinois, as in any other jurisdiction in the United States, it is completely legal to impersonate a police officer. In Illinois, this particular criminal offense is called false personation. It can get you up to 3 years in prison, among other sentences. So think about that next time you and your friends decide to dress up as the Fuzz for Halloween.
That's a good idea.
So now with all of this fraudulently acquired information about when all the neighbors are going to leave town, Harry and Marv sit down and conveniently conspire to commit burglary, criminal trespass, and grand larceny.
Check it out. All the houses with nobody home have automatic timers on their lights. But I got it all figured out. Watch this. Now!
Because Marv has entered into a conspiracy with Harry, he's now on the hook for all of the crimes that Harry has committed in furtherance of this conspiracy. So that means Marv is also now on the hook for criminal impersonation. As part of that criminal conspiracy, Harry and Marv attempt to burgle the McCallister house, but are only thwarted at the last minute when they get spooked by Kevin.
Get the hell out of here. 1, 2, 10.
And although Harry and Marv are temporarily dissuaded from robbing the McCallister house, they lick their wounds and simply drive down the road to then burgle some other neighbor's house instead. Clearly another example of grand larceny, but because they are the eponymous Wet Bandits, they can't help themselves but clog up the sinks in the house to cause wanton destruction of property. So again, even though it's only Marv that is committing this felonious act, both of them are on the hook for intentional destruction of property. These people won't be back for days, and the Wet Bandits have struck, leaving their house in shambles. Now, in between their various burglaries, the two could probably also be convicted of stalking. In Illinois, if someone simply engages in a course of conduct which they know would cause the target or person to fear for their safety, they may be guilty of stalking. And here, Harry and Marv are driving around the neighborhood in a creepy work van, following little Kevin McCallister in probably such a way that would cause him to fear for his safety. And finally, after Harry and Marv's attempt to burgle the McCallisters as Kevin gets the best of them, they attempt to seriously maim or kill Kevin for all of his traps.
Hiya, pal. We outsmarted you this time.
But luckily they get bashed in the head by a kind old man. Wait. Now, given the severity of what Harry says he's going to do to Kevin...
What are you gonna do to him, Harry?
I'll do exactly what he did to us. And I'll burn his head with a blowtorch.
And given that he is in the heat of the moment, this is probably attempted second-degree murder. But now let's talk about how Harry and Marv found themselves in this situation. Let's talk about the criminal liability of little Kevin McCallister, aka the Puppet Master. Like most criminals, Kevin starts off small. He starts off the movie by assaulting his older brother Buzz, simply for some harmless taunting.
Did anyone order me a plain cheese?
Oh yeah, we did. If you want any, somebody's gonna have to barf it all up.
Then, having acquired a taste for blood, Kevin moves on to the wanton destruction of Buzz's property and theft. Now, arguably, this wasn't done intentionally, so perhaps the destruction of property gets knocked down to simply negligent destruction of property. But he's very clearly stealing from his older brother.
All right. Buzz's life savings.
And to add insult to injury, the heartless then taunts Buzz's girlfriend.
Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof.
Now, having been emboldened by petty theft, Kevin moves on to some public shoplifting.
Wait, son, you have to pay for that toothbrush. Son? Son? Hey!
And while Kevin seems like the victim in this situation, I assure you, he is not.
Shoplifter!
And although Kevin didn't quite intend to take the toothbrush when he ran out of the store, one could argue that he's guilty of what's called retail theft under Illinois law because he knowingly carried the toothbrush away from him and away from the store.
I'm a criminal.
But all of those offenses were simply babytown frolics in preparation for the main event. Can Kevin McCallister really create a nightmare house of booby traps to punish Harry and Marv for the attempt to burgle his own house? Well, in Illinois, in the absence of any defenses, one is guilty of battery and probably assault as well, if they cause bodily harm to an individual. Needless to say, Kevin intentionally caused quite a bit of bodily harm to both Harry and Marv. For example, you could argue that Kevin McCallister is a criminal mastermind up there with Jigsaw and Martha Stewart.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
I'm sorry.
Now, if convicted of battery, Kevin could receive up to a year in jail for each attempt, though that sentence would probably be modified since he's a juvenile and wouldn't likely be tried as an adult. Though the complexity of these death traps does evidence an adult-like temperament, if not straight-up psychosis.
You guys give up, or you're thirsty for more?
However, thankfully for Kevin, Illinois statutes allow for both self-defense and defense of the home. That means that in certain cases, one can use physical force to defend themselves against another or to defend their property, so long as Kevin reasonably believes that force was necessary to defend himself and his gigantic family's home. He could get off scot-free. Though I think everyone knows that the better course of action is simply call the police instead of rigging your house with death traps.
Marv! Harry?
Why the hell did you take your shoes off?
Why the hell you dressed like a chicken?
Now, the defense of self-defense and defense of property generally applies to the non-deadly traps. But does it apply to everything? Of course, we love to talk about the use of deadly force on this channel. Here, most of the traps in question are arguably not inherently deadly. But some of those traps are as deadly as they get. I mean, those paint cans could crush your skull.
Heads up!
And that's a flamethrower. So generally speaking, a person can use non-deadly force against another when he or she reasonably believes that is necessary to prevent or terminate another's unlawful entry into or attack onto a dwelling. Now, under Illinois law, a person can only use deadly force if an entry to the house is made in a violent, riotous, or tumultuous manner, and there is a reasonable belief that the force is necessary to prevent an assault or personal violence against the victim or another in the dwelling, or if the person reasonably believes the force is necessary to prevent a felony from being committed. So, is that standard met? Well, Marv and Harry enter multiple times, sometimes quietly.
We know that you're in there, and that you're all alone.
Sometimes in ways that might be considered violent, riotous, or tumultuous.
Where are you, you little creep?
And by the way, if you want to know what happened in the real-life case of when someone rigged up a shotgun booby trap in their own house, check out the link in the description to the animated true crime video that I just did about the case of the shotgun booby trap. The link is in the description. So we know that the first element for use of deadly force is probably met under these circumstances. But when you're talking about entering into the house, a few of you real Legaleagles out there are probably thinking about the duty to retreat. Because at common law, you can't use deadly force if you have the ability to retreat safely. And some states have passed so-called castle or stand your ground laws that reverse the common law rule and allow you to use deadly force whether you can safely retreat or not. And Illinois, as it happens, doesn't have a stand your ground law, but it does have a castle law. So to the extent that Kevin is using deadly force in self-defense in his own home, he does not have a duty to retreat, and he can use deadly force in self-defense.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
But that complicates things, because Kevin eventually leaves his own house. And so, having retreated from his home, he can no longer use deadly force to defend himself, because he can retreat safely. So cutting Harry and Marv down is arguably battery, if not attempted murder, given how high they are up in the air.
Hey guys, check this out.
The little psychopath has really grown up.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Now, before we tally up all the sentences, let's spend a moment to examine the little crimes that are just too small to go into any particular detail, like the pizza boy's destruction of property and reckless driving, Uncle Frank's casual theft,
That's real crystal. It's real. So? Put them in your purse. Go ahead. Put them. Just put them in your purse.
and use of illegal fireworks indoors.
Cool, firecrackers. I'll save these for later.
But all right, it's time for a verdict. Let's tally up the crimes. So let's start with Kevin's parents, Mr. and Mrs. McCallister. They are accused of felony child abandonment and child endangerment.
I hope you don't mean that.
That carries with it a maximum sentence of 6 years in prison. But given the mitigating circumstances, the first-time offense, and the fact that Kevin lived a life of luxury when he wasn't abandoned, they'd probably get a year of probation. And I think that we can assume that Peter McCallister would hire a really good lawyer because he appears to be incredibly wealthy.
Am I under arrest or something?
That brings us to Harry and Marv. They're accused of dozens of burglaries as proven by their Wet Bandit calling card.
Nice move. Always leaving the water running. Now we know each and every house that you've hit.
Each one carries with it a maximum of 7 years in prison. In total, they'd probably look at 5 to 10 years in jail for the burglaries. Then they'd get 6 years in jail for impersonating a police officer. Then for the attempted homicide of Kevin McCallister, or at least the aggravated battery of a minor, tack on another 10 years. Finally, that takes us to the puppet master himself, Kevin McCallister. His shoplifting would be pleaded down to a misdemeanor at most. Now, attempted homicide would normally carry at least a 5 to 10 year penalty under these circumstances, but no jury would ever convict an 8-year-old of living out a revenge fantasy in the suburbs of Illinois. So the puppet master goes free to maim and kill again.
Did I burn down the joint? I don't think so.
While Kevin created a fun house of horrors for Harry and Marv, my friends and I were busy building a playground for YouTube creators. In fact, if you liked this episode, I posted all of my bloopers exclusively on our own streaming platform. It's called Nebula, and we are thrilled to be partnering with CuriosityStream. We built Nebula as a place where creators don't need to worry about demonetization or the dreaded algorithm. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I got demonetized for showing scenes from a PG movie. Won't someone please think of the children?
Hello.
Because it's hard out there being a creator. Nebula is a place where creators can do what they do best. Create. It's a place where we can both house our content ad-free and also experiment with new original series that probably wouldn't work on YouTube because of the algorithm. For less than 20 cents per day or $20 a year, you can help a struggling YouTuber. Link in the description. Okay, enough of that. When I say that Nebula is built by creators for creators, I really mean it. Nebula features lots of YouTube's top educational-ish creators, like Real Engineering, Half as Interesting, Tierzoo, Knowing Better, Real Life Lore, and tons of others. We also get to collaborate in ways that probably wouldn't work on YouTube. For example, the Nebula exclusive series called Working Titles, where every episode, a different creator breaks down their favorite TV intro sequence. Polyphonic did Game of Thrones, Mia Mulder did Battlestar Galactica, and I'll be covering Law & Order very, very soon. Seriously, we worked really hard on this and we were really proud of the results. The project is self-funded, we're not backed by investors, and we managed to make all of this ad-free with no dreaded algorithm.
And there's plenty more where that came from.
So what does this have to do with CuriosityStream? Well, they love educational content and educational creators, so they are a perfect partner for Nebula. We just recently worked out a deal where if you sign up for CuriosityStream with the link in the description, not only will you get a 1-month free trial for CuriosityStream, but you'll also get a Nebula subscription for free. And to be clear, that Nebula subscription is not a trial. It's free for as long as you're a CuriosityStream member, which means that for less than $20 a year, not only do you get unlimited access to CuriosityStream's massive library of gorgeous, high-budget documentaries, you'll also get to enjoy the private playground of YouTube's best educational creators for no additional charge. And you'll be supporting creators like me directly. Just go to curiositystream.com/Legaleagle. So if you sign up using that link below, not only will you be able to access CuriosityStream's amazing documentaries like 101 Events That Made the 20th Century, which includes my favorite episode on Watergate for reasons that should be obvious, but you'll also get a subscription to Nebula for as long as you are a member to CuriosityStream. Seriously, it's less than $20 a year. Just click on the link. So, do you agree with my verdict? Leave your objections in the comments, and check out how many laws were broken in your other favorite movies like Jurassic Park and The Dark Knight over here in this playlist, where I'll see you in court.